Good afternoon, good morning, everyone here in the audience. Also, the people that are watching virtually, welcome to the third and fifth session of the second day of Winter. We will be discussing on the topic cultural heritage, new initiatives to study, research, and open up Indonesian collections in the Netherlands. My name is Bente Bergmans, and I'm currently an advisor at the Cultural Heritage Agency. I'm also involved as the secretary of the Colonial Collections Consortium, which is a joint initiative by 5 Dutch institutions to support provenance research into collections from a colonial context. And next to me is Vijay, who will also be moderating together with me the session.
Yeah, thanks, Bente. My name is Widya Fityanisi. I am an assistant professor at the Department of History, Universitas Gadjah Mada.
Yes, so we're excited to have this last session with all of you here in the audience and also online. So I'll firstly introduce a little bit more about the topic, and then we're going into our speakers that are here today. So in museums in the Netherlands, there is a considerable amount of cultural objects related to the colonial past with Indonesia. Some of these objects were taken from Indonesia during the colonial period against the will of the local population, for example, by sale under duress or by looting. In recent years, there's an increasing interest for these collections. Within the context of the Dutch policy on colonial collections, Indonesia and the Netherlands work closely together on the return of cultural objects to Indonesia, as we have seen as such as last Friday, where it has been announced that 288 objects will return. Besides having a transparent procedure on repatriation, the Dutch policy also focuses on strengthening international cooperation, and also there are different initiatives to support study and research in cultural objects. And in this context, we'll be talking with 4 of our speakers, or actually 6 of our speakers. 2 of them are here invited by the Scholarship Cultural Heritage School and Nuffic, which will be Lucia, Nara. Thank you for joining this session. And there will be 2 research projects that have been awarded amongst the 11 ones that have been awarded by the Dutch Research Council. And these 2 projects will be presented by Vija under her moderation. So to not have more time taken from us, because we'll be doing this session for an hour and 15 minutes. So we're trying to take a break at 1 o'clock. I would like to give the floor to Tricia. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
And you're currently studying at the Rijnwaard Academy.
Yes,
started this month.
Yeah, in this early September. That's right.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious about your first impressions of the study, but I would like to give the floor to you first to introduce yourself and present your topic of interest.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I have to stand because I'm quite short. So, my PPT, please. Yeah, okay. Good morning, everyone in the Netherlands, and good afternoon, everyone in Indonesia. Well, as the appetizer for this session, I will be introducing my incipient research for my master study. The title might change afterward, but it's about more or less how storytelling can elevate historical building into one of the museum collections. And next slide, please. And this is what you will be listening to in the next 15 minutes or possibly less. I will explain the background context of my research and why I choose storytelling framework in particular. And I will end it with my conclusion, which is my research question and my research direction. Next slide, please. Okay, let's start with the introduction. I'm Trisa, I'm Indonesian, and I am currently studying Master Applied Museum and Heritage Study at Rijnwaard Academy in Amsterdam. And my background, that's the Rijnwaard Academy School, you can see. And my background is in historical architecture documentation through joining Pusat Dokumentasi Arsitektur after I received my bachelor in architecture. And yeah, that's our work that we used to do in PDA, documenting historical buildings. And I used to live in Jakarta, known in Southeast Asia as a city full with traffic jam and also dense metropolitan fabric. But we also have a historical urban landscape that is defining the layers of history of our city development, such as Kota Tua Jakarta, used to be Batavia, and also there's the Menteng area, and the more modernized area, which is Sudirman Tamrin. And then, well, each of these areas have their own cultural characteristic and prominently proved by the cultural heritage buildings that what we call them in Indonesia. But here in Netherlands, you will know them as monuments. Next slide, please. Okay, so these historical buildings that have high values are usually documented, conserved, and utilized mostly as government facilities. And of course, as museum, because the governments also own most of the historical building. And then the museum collection also varied, including the national artifact and art masterpieces, and also thematic collection. Museum Nasional Indonesia here in the slide is where the newly repatriated artifacts will be housed, and also a couple of years repatriated artifacts was temporarily exhibited here in the National Gallery of Indonesia. And then, well, Museum Bank Indonesia, they exhibit the history of commerce of Indonesia. Next slide, please. Well, there's nothing wrong with it actually, but in contrast, there's little showcase on the building itself, which has its own cultural value. That's why we put them on the status of cultural heritage or monuments. And they also have their own architectural splendor, and also when painstakingly expensive efforts of conservation. For example, Museum Bank Indonesia there, PDA also imported the documentation in 1999. And it was a beautiful empire-style building designed by Pipers and Goodwitz for the Java's Bank in 1755. And the entire conservation and adaptive reuse into museum took around 7 years, from 1999 until 2006, when it is open for public. And well, the efforts is paid well with the results, and Bank Indonesia until now properly maintain the buildings, both the physical and as museum. So when you go to Jakarta, you can visit the museum. It's very nice. Next slide, please. Now, oh yeah. Now here's the issue. At this current time, utilization of historical building is much more than its intangible aspect. It actually have its own intangible aspect, which is in this building case is the story and past events of the previous dollars, and also how the past and current society looks at it. And if you want to stretch it, how our future generation will look at the building. And all of it combined, it adds depth and also context for visitors that is visiting the museum. And that I argue is an economic potential in attracting diverse audience and also, of course, generating more revenue. And secondly, this building also serves as a educational research by disseminating the architectural value for the for the visitor, especially young children, because then they can be exposed more to the knowledge from young age. Next slide, please. Also, a prevalent museum issue, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, UNESCO and ICROM in 2020 released an analysis on museum trends, and one of its synthesis is that museum face challenges, including digital integration, financial sustainability, and also engagement. Now, in cases of museum that is housed in historical building, managerial might feel constrained with the restriction that came from the building conservation status. especially if it were to compare itself with a more postmodern building and that have cutting-edge technology for their museum program. But technology isn't the only solution, I said, to engagement issue. I would argue that an effective engagement is one that is enlightened and also memorable and done in a simplest but enjoyable way possible. But the big question is how? How to include the engagement contextually that benefits both the museum and the building. Next slide, please. Now, here's enter the storytelling. Storytelling is a framework tool that incorporates interpretation to create a cohesive engagement. Storytelling also provides context and meanings to the objects and also can help visitors to understand its significance through the narrative in the simplest and enjoyable way. And the magic of storytelling also lies in its interpretative nature that goes both ways. So museum can provide contextualization and their narrative, and the visitor that receive it can freely translate it to their own bias. And also storytelling is not a new thing. Actually, it has been used as an integral managerial tool for the tangible heritage sites, parks, and also museum. And many museums also incorporate storytelling to build their narrative for their program. And this is one of the recent examples. This is a recent event that is going on, the Good Institute Living Room by the New Institute. And I find their storytelling quite interesting, yeah, because by bringing the concept of living room, which is a space in the house where everyone can share their story and idea. And yeah, so I think it's interesting to visit them. So if you have time and the capacity to visit, please do check them out. Next slide, please. Now, here's the big question that I have to ask myself, of course. How to integrate storytelling so it can effectively bridge the communication gap of historical building and as part of the collection to the Indonesian museum visitors. And also, as a response to the global issue, how to integrate them in the most sustainable, inclusive, and open to digitality way as possible. And for conclusion, along my study, I'm sure to update my research question, but but the objective will remain the same. I want to know that utilization of historical building is beyond their heritage status limitation, especially in museum context, because that is what I find museum managerial, especially ones in the historical building, they feel constrained by that status of cultural heritage. And that is what I am currently studying at Renwatis about meaningful and purposeful heritage intervention. And of course, have the support from the Cultural Heritage Scholarship Program, whose mission is including nurturing professionals in the heritage museum and international museum and heritage fields. Next slide, last slide. Feedback are much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trisha, for presenting your research question.
Thank you.
You started this month at the Rijnwaard, and you already mentioned it. I might, adjust the research question along as I go.
Of course, yeah, because there's the process of studying. I got more knowledge and I update my research.
Yeah, so there are 4 elements interesting on your story: the historic buildings, the collection, the concept of storytelling, and also how that can be integrated with each other and how can that strengthen to reach an audience that has never been to a museum or thinks, well, this is not something for me, but I want to be in a cozy, nice living room space, and then you get to know the collection. So there are different strategies you pointed out. I was wondering, you haven't mentioned it in your story. What is something like a specific skill or a specific concept or topic you would like to delve into for the coming year at the Rijnwaard University, Rijnwaard Academy, what is the specific expectation or skill to learn and to know?
So, well, because I just started, so actually the expectation is still, it's not fully formulated yet, my expectation, but like I've said, I want to know how to make an heritage intervention.
Yes.
That is contextual, so it can respond to the issue and needs of different museum, yeah, because the museum here in the Netherlands is much different from the museum in Indonesia. So that's my main expectation for now.
So visiting more museums in the Netherlands will also be a part of your adventure for the coming months.
Of course, at least it will be a very nice inspiration.
Yes, yes. So let's see if there are questions from the visible audience or virtual audience. Okay, not yet. So I will ask you one more question before we move on. So you're with the Nuffic Scholarship here in the Netherlands alongside other 19 students from Sri Lanka, Suriname, South Africa. How many students are there from Indonesia? Do you know? Have you met them all?
Of course, we met them back in Jakarta when there's a gathering. I think there are 6 of us that have the scholars that is in the scholarship program. And yeah,
it's nice to exchange your experience and really starting this together. You didn't know the other students yet before you arrived here.
No, we didn't know each other. Yeah. I know Made from the cultural and the scholarship program meeting.
Yeah, back in the Odyssey.
Yeah.
So that's the first time we actually really meet again.
Yeah.
Here, actually the first time in person in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Because you're in Nuffic, right?
Yeah.
Well, far, yeah. We've heard the story that a lot of traffic in Jakarta, which is also makes some places go far.
Yeah.
Some places go, more close. So,
Yeah.
So as for the expectations you already shared with us, is there something that that you feel like this is what I'm gonna bring to the Netherlands? Because I have something to offer as well. Is there something you would like to point out? Bring with you.
I haven't really thought about that. Yeah, but that in case of the Netherlands, the historical building itself is our shared heritage. Have you seen the pictures I've put in my presentation? Both of them are colonial buildings from our colonialization era. So I saw those buildings also as a heritage that the Dutch left us, and conserving it is also as a form of continuing the connection, right?
Yeah.
Instead of destroying it or anything else, conserving it, because it's at the same time it's also Indonesia heritage. So that is my point of view. So by adaptive reuse that building and also in line with its conservation is connecting the shared heritage that we have. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I'd like to move to our second part of the session.
Yeah, thanks, Bente. I think without further delay and with a great pleasure, let's welcome the next presenter, Dr. Kiki Rizky Sutisna Putri. Yeah, she's joining us here online. She is a researcher and lecturer at the Faculty of Art and Design, Institute of Technology, Bandung. She leads the Center of Indonesian Visual Art Studies and is deeply engaged preserving and showcasing the history of art education in Indonesia. Her work involves managing a significant collection of heritage artifacts related to Bandung School and integrating historical collection with contemporary art practices and educational programs. She also spearheads initiatives that combine archival research, with modern technology to bring new perspective on the significance of these artifacts within the narrative of Indonesian modern. And Dr. Kiki will present her research proposal, which will take the issue of museum or cultural heritage management further in how it impacts pedagogy and cultural knowledge. Kiki, you will have 10 minutes to present your research proposal. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Vidya. Can you hear me clear?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. Hello, Trisha, Nara, Mbak Vidya, and Bente. It is an honor to be here virtually today at the winner Week of Indonesian Netherlands Education and Research Cultural Heritage. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers and participants, also fellow speakers, for this opportunity to present our research proposal. So this is not yet research, it will be started next year. As mentioned before, that this research project is part of the 11 grants for the NWA research into collection with the colonial context. And I'm really excited to share what we offer to study, research, and open up the Indonesian collection in Netherlands. And I will open for any discussion, especially your insight and input to this research. So yeah, do you already have my PDF?
I think the organizing committee will prepare. Yeah, Mas Awari, can you? Okay.
Or maybe I should present by myself. I already sent to the organizers before, yeah.
We are preparing it now.
Oh,
We are preparing.
oh, prepare. All right. Thank you so much. So this is the proposal of the research. The title is Imagining Modernity, Colonial Archives, and the Reimagination of Arts, Pedagogy, and Cultural Knowledge. Oh, I have to say next, yeah, next. No, the first, no. So yeah, this is the consortium. My partner is Professor Marike Bloembergen from KTLB and Leiden University from the Netherlands. And we have our collaborating institutions. We have Harm Stevens from Rijksmuseum, and we have Dr. Maya Rosa from ICOMOS Indonesia, my colleague from Faculty of Art and Design, Harifah Siregar. He now serves as the head of culture hub here in FSRD ITB. And my other colleague, Danu Tias Pradita, the head of Gallery Sumarja, our gallery campus. And also we have Aulia Ibrahim Yeru from Telkom University and Theofrits Utabarat from University of Parahyangan or UNPAR. Yeah, this is the consortium. Next. Okay. The societal problems addressed by the consortium in this project revolves around sites and objects from ancient Hindu Buddha era in Java and the colonial and post-colonial knowledge constructions established by the institutions such as, pardon my pronunciation, Batavia Genootschap, Der Kunsten and Wetenschappen, or Batavia Society for Art and Science, Oude Kundige Dienst, or Archaeological Bureau, if I'm not mistaken, in the Netherlands, Indy, and Technische Hogeschool de Bandung, or now became Institute Teknologi Bandung in where I am now teach and research. The concern and fascination on ancient past from the scholars and scientific communities laid a foundation for the construction of the state past in relation to their lived present. This retrospective approach from the fields of history, archaeology, ethnography, and other disciplines such as the arts excavated long-lost civilizations and tried to make sense of the complex cultural interactions that happened before. The framing of those sites and objects as the legacy of great past curiously served as a rare common interest from colonialists and nationalists alike. Yet this fascination and thorough discovery, exploration, and study on ancient past created a common misconception of ideas such as original, native, even indigenous. By approach their subject from scientific position, scholars naturalize their frames as natural, as their findings as faithful representation of lost civilization, while covered the colonial and national agenda at the time. The legacy of this approach led to failure to recognize the sites and objects from Hindu-Buddha era as contingent to far more complex knowledge constructions. These societal problems, more or less initiated by the network of scientific institutions that directly provide the frames, while those complex knowledge network within turbulent moments, example, change of the regime and violent times that led to loss of substantial number of unpublished documentation and archives, has been yet acknowledged in its entirety even today. Next. The title of this project, Imagining Modernity, was stemmed from our question on the role of art, in particular the practice of art making, exhibiting, curating, and collecting. In that complex knowledge network, we set Technische Hogeschool, the Bandung, or THS, founded in 1920, and its following iteration, such as Universiteit Indonesia, and then later on became Bandung Institute of Technology, or ITB, as the site of our research and examine its role in constructing the frame or imagination of modern Indonesia through the curriculum and pedagogy. More context about the situation is that Institut Teknologi Bandung was built in 1920 by the Dutch as they needed experts and engineers in their colonized land, Dutch East India. So they built Technische Hogeschool in Bandung. Bandung saw at the time as the perfect location. The climate is colder compared to Jakarta or Surabaya, maybe. Before ITB was built by the Dutch, they already built the facility for plantation in north of Bandung. On the other hand, our faculty, if you see the blue line there, our faculty, Faculty of Art and Design, was established in 1947, the oldest art school in the country. It was bear the name Balai Pendidikan Universiter Guru Gambar, or Universitair Leergang voor de Opleiding van de Tekenleraren. I'm sorry, my pronunciation. Was established, which became part of the Fakultas Teknik Universiteit Indonesia in Bandung, which have two sections. One was section of architecture, and other one was section of fine art. The establishment of the education center was based on the wishes of the Dutch Ministry of Education and Culture in the Dutch East India at the time. The Dutch royal government saw that there was still lack of art educators to be placed in secondary schools in the Indies. The presence of the education center was expected to meet these shortcomings by education and producing prospective art teachers. The fine art section of the department is now known as the Faculty of Art and Design, Bandung Institute of Technology. Next, please. The assumptions of this research we offer is that there's three assumptions. One is scholarly and political motive. The problem analysis assumes that there were political factors related to the movement of Hindu-Buddha objects from the original site to ITB campus during the Dutch East Indies colonial period. To what extent do scholarly and political motivations drove the movement of this object to ITB? What insights can be gained into the scholarly and political considerations underlying the mobility of this object? The second assumption is the knowledge gap existence. A knowledge gap exists regarding the provenance and social biography of the object. What insight can be gleaned about the provenance and social biography of this object? How, why, and for whom were the objects used or integrated into the curriculum? To what extent did the meaning of this object change over time, especially as they were relocated from their original sites into a modern educational space like ITB? How might their social histories spanning within ITB's history and beyond that be of significance? And the question is from the influence of Dutch colonial policies. Problem analysis assumes that the Dutch colonial policies had a substantial influence on the relocation of objects and the shaping of the curriculum in Bandung Institute of Technology, or THS. What extent did Dutch colonial policies influence the development of the curriculum at ITB at the time? How did local actors contribute to shaping the curriculum? And what role did the objects, such as the archas, play in this context? Next, please. We set to unpack the role of Technische Hogeschool actors with strong focus on this Professor Van Romont. The research will primarily be based on his inaugural speech for the appointment as professor in architecture section at the Fakulteit Teknik Universiteit Indonesia in Bandung on May 26, 1954. Romont served as technical inspector of the Colonial Archaeological Service in Yogyakarta, in charge of the reconstruction of the 9th century temple of Siva at Candi Prambanan in Central Java. Van Romont remained in his post in the 1950s after a transfer of sovereignty with the Dinas Purbakala, Indonesian Archaeological Service. After over 20 years of working in the archaeological office, he became professor in ITB in 1954. Van Romont taught courses on the history of architecture and theory of forms. His archive at Leiden contains notes from classroom seminars on modernist architects in Europe and the United States of America, but he must also given a heavy dose of Indonesian traditional architecture, perhaps pulling together his archaeological findings. According to Romont's inaugural speech, he referred his special intention to the local actors, especially in fine art section of the department. He said, "I would like to convey special words to lecturers and students from fine art or Balai Pendidikan Universitas Seni Rupa. Building expert needs you," he said. "You have the liberty to create form from your feeling. If technical issues dominate us, then we need your help to bring us back to our duty to overcome technology." We assume that Romont may have significant role as architecture lecturer at the Technische Hogeschool, particularly in relation to his long involvement with Oude Kundige Dienst, or Archaeological Bureau at the time. Next, please. On the visible trace, one of the visible trace on his legacy in ITB is the collection of Hindu-Buddha statues or archa, that were associated with Romont and his archaeological ventures at the time. These statues are now displayed around the campus gallery in Faculty of Art and Design ITB under the care of the Center for Indonesian Visual Art Studies, seemingly without sufficient information. The presence of these Hindu-Buddha statues in ITB campus prompts our question upon the contingency of such objects to certain knowledge construction, or in this case, the lack of thereof. What is the implication of the modern art pedagogy in ITB? Example, the inclination to analyze form of local artifact as element to be synthesized in a more recent needs, to the cultural understanding in the contemporary Indonesian society. Furthermore, what is the implication of such approach in art practice to the absence of complex knowledge construction in the newly built society of Indonesia? In your screen, there are some examples. One of the image popularly known as the situation of the Education Center in Bandung, or the Balai Pendidikan Universitas Guru Gambar in circa 1940s, if I'm not mistaken. This is from one image that freely regulated online. The situation depicts the student in one of the painting lecture sessions, surrounding by objects that span from the ancient Greece, influenced plaster cast, to the traditional music instrument. There's batik and sambonang there, traditional music instruments. On the right side, there's capture from one of the program book that we still have, which came from the 1950 to 1951 curriculum. For another context, that we don't have a complete version of the program books, unfortunately. We have today in ITB is only left over. So this one, the capture of the introduction for the program book. It says the idea is in line. It says the aim is to educate our teachers by linking the progress of painting, fine art from the West on the one hand and folk crafts on the other. Have the skill to demonstrate cultural values in secondary school. And then another paragraph says, at the Balai Pendidikan, experimentation was intended to investigate which modern Western genres could be adapted to the meaning of art here. The idea is in line with common speech regarding an intention to build and synthesize the Western progress in one hand and to acknowledge local history in the other. But this gesture left us question regarding how this perspective, I must say, becoming our imagined modernity, the modernity that inherited us as the scholars and alumni from the school. Next, please. So what we are going to do with this project, the whole project will be divided into work packages, one work package for 1 year, and we will do this research for 5 years in total. So in the first year, before that we already built our preliminary research, including object biography, something like that. Yeah, and in year number 1, we will research collecting data related to especially Professor Van Romon collection in mainly Leiden University Library. And later on, maybe in World Museum, New Institute, and maybe also Dutch National Archive, assessing Roman's work, administrative archive related to the Technische Hogeschool de Bandung, Batavia Shop, and Audiekundienst in Netherlands. The second encounter will be the several archives, including archives about ITB, archives about Universitair Hang for Tekenlelaren, curriculum documents, founding document by Ministry van Onderwijs, and also we also consider another actors such as Iserman, Kempers, Admiral, Zaimaker, Mulder, and all related to the foundation of this school. And in the second year, we will follow by the social life of this object from where they were from the original site, such as we will also have field research to Solokelir Temple in Penanggungan Mountain, and also to tracing back across how this object movement across war and maybe occupation to ITB. And year number 3, we will have exhibition, Bandung, experimental research based curating, approach to reimagining engagement with ancient objects, and etc. Year number 4, we will also have a pre-production of documentary film. We will have documentary film about this whole process from the beginning. And last year, we will have international conference regarding this topic in our annual biennial international conference in Faculty of Art and Design, ITB, called SI Art.
Maybe you can come to the conclusion.
Okay, next one. It's the last one.
Yeah.
Next one, another one. So I don't have any conclusion yet because it is started next year. But we already done our preliminary research for objects biography and art pedagogy in the context of the beginning of the school. We mostly do the research from literature now and secondary data stored in our libraries in several departments in ITB. We also plan to have workshop and FGDs relating to the preliminary data that we have now. And next one. Thank you for insight, anything, suggestion, tips, please feel free to contact me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kiki. Your work is essential, and I hope it will contribute to reshaping narratives around the notion of cultural heritage management, which is primarily Eurocentric and male-dominated, I think. I'm sorry, I think we will not have a Q&A at the moment. Yeah, we will do that after. So let's next to our third presenter, Dr. Sri Mardana. Are you there? Will join us virtually.
Yeah, I'm here.
I would also like to invite Barbara Titus as well. Yeah. Yeah. So Margana is a lecturer at the Department of History and is my colleague. He served as the project leader and principal investigator for the Restituting, Reconnecting, Reimagining Sound Heritage, or we call it as ReSound project. The NWO awarded funding for this project under the call Research into Collection with a Colonial Context. And Margana, along with Barbara, an associate professor of cultural musicology at the University of Amsterdam. She is also a co-applicant for this project. We'll introduce the research project and share a few examples of the sound or audio collections in a 15 minutes presentations. So, Dr. Margana and Barbara, the floor now is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, everybody.
You can take the video.
Yeah, I've tried to show the video, but it seems not work. I don't know why. Somebody. Okay, I've tried, but it's not working. Yeah.
That's fine. You can get started.
Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. Sorry about the technical aspect about the video. So today I'm very happy to introduce our coming project that we work together with our colleague here in UvA, Amsterdam, Dr. Mele Yamuno, Dr. Barbara Titus, and also Vidya here is a moderator. Our project is related to the project that auspiced by the NVO about restricting, connecting, reimagining, and sound heritage. So we make it short. We call it ReSound. Next. So this is part of the research program by NVO and NVA, research into collection with colonial context. And this program aims to readers in justice and strengthens trust and cooperations with the countries of origins. Next. So we start with the kind of problems that we identify. It is the understanding, conception of and the formulation of heritage and the cultural artifact, which is still primarily Eurocentric. So it caused a Eurocentric conception of heritage obscured the coloniality of the history that heritage is supposed to narrate. And also Eurocentric conception of heritage hindered the access of stakeholders from source communities to their own heritage. We also found knowledge gap in there. where there is no scholarly political and archival curatorial model to deal with this Eurocentrism of the notion of the heritage. So we try to apply methods. Resounds employ a sonic sensitivity and analysis as a method to scrutinize understanding and conception of heritage with particularly critical ear towards the colonial legacy of this understanding and conceptions. By focusing on sonic heritage, Resound is able to trace the elaborate, complex, and multi-phases process of imperial uh, objectification, extraction, and also cultural hierarchical ordering and taxonomy that the sonic utterance had to undergo before they could be collected and archived as cultural artifacts, conforming to a European's understanding of heritage. Uh, we also pose a main question here that we're going to find the answer during our project. How does the research of colonial sound recording, in this case music, ritual, broadcasts, political and cultural events, speeches, debates, interviews, coverage of insurgencies, revolt, and wars that are stored in former imperial metropoles provide ways to reconsider the hitherto Eurocentric understanding of heritage, namely, not as a collection of distinct and hierarchical order objects, but as fleeting, time-bound expression that have been detached from their environments, separated from their creators, and confined with the physical formats such as file, boxes, disk, wax cylinder, and other storage mediums. We're expecting some important impact from this project. Resounds contribute to the complication, and diversification of notion of heritage, a decentering European agency in the understanding, conception, and curation of heritage through a sound source-based historiography, sensitive to multiple voice, and stands at once with particular attention to voice of those who are not represented or misrepresented in written historical sources on which most historiography has been based. Uh, we also expecting improved access for source community stakeholders to Dutch and other European archive institutions with regard to physical access, space, visa, workspace, research access like language, cataloging, structure of organization, taxonomy, and also digital access is uh, mainly accessibility of online database and interfaces. Uh, Here one of example from the main sounds collection in the Netherlands that we have, and in a certain ways we already have done in previous research and try to look at the important and the significance of this collection for historiography. It is Yap Kunst collection. It is mostly music based, hearing the Indonesian archipelago done by UVA, and also the Philips Holland Omroep Hollands Indies radio broadcast, and it was with the, collected in Build and Cloud and ESV, mostly speech-based collection. And also Yapkun's collection Soundsbed, we have done some important research, and we have produced some example from previous project that we've done together with our colleague, especially Barbara and Mele in UFA. And maybe later, Barbara, you can explain later more about Yapkun's collection soundbite. Next. So other sound selection with neo-colonial context that may be also important then become important subject of our research is the collection of phonogram archive in Berlin. We've been there also to visit the collection. Phonogram archive in Vienna, Austria. Loud archive in the Humboldt University, Berlin. Lokananta record in Surakarta, Indonesia. And Museum Sono Budoyo has a large collection of the sound archives. Queer Indonesian Archive in Jakarta, My Archive, Sunway University in Malaysia, and also UP Center for Ethnomusicology Musicology in Manila, Philippines. In this project, we're going to divide into 3 different work pages. And the first work pages would be PhD researcher from Indonesia researchers and sound archive in Europe. We are expecting of this PhD will conduct the PhD in Gajah Mada or maybe in UVA. The work package 2 is visiting fellows. Unfortunately, we only able to provide 2 visiting fellows from Indonesia Research Sounds Archive in Europe for 3 months. So they have an opportunity to do primary sources in the Netherlands. And the last work package is network building. This is a consortium meeting in Indonesia that will be held in 2026 and summer school hosted in Gajah Mada University in 2027. These are our partners in doing this project, and especially in Europe and Southeast Asia, as I mentioned before in the list. Next. And there's some also important activities that we're going to do during the project is like a consortium meeting online and on location in Netherlands and in Indonesia. We also to do research visit to the Netherlands, especially for the PhD candidate and visiting fellow, principal investigator, project coordinator, and also consortium meetings with resource community representative in Indonesia. And the last would be summer school that will be held around 5 days involving Gajah Mada University student and South community representative in Indonesia. We're expecting some important outputs. Of course, first one is PhD dissertation that will be defended at very latest in 2028, and then visiting fellow research reports that expecting from the 2 main fellow reports, and collected volume in collaboration with partner and source community representative in 2028, and also identification and correction of hitherto unidentified, invisible, mislabeled, or uncatalogued primary sounds archive. The others, perhaps we still also expecting the sustenance and strengthening of translocal, transcontinental, and inter-Asian archive curatorial network, awareness of Dutch and European partner of archive access hurdle, decertification of the narrative about heritage and heritage curation presented by the university, museum, archive, and heritage institution in Europe and Southeast Asia. The articulation of relevance of sound source and historical research and development of theoretical foundation for restitution policies. We still have some more expectation from this outcome from the project. Identify, organizing, catalog that previously overlooked, misplaced, mislabeled, concealed material within their institution. Reconnect archive material at different location and different media. Empower a new generation of research from countries of origins. Next, we want to show you a little bit some of the Yapkun's collection that now kept in UvA, especially in a special collection in the library of University of Amsterdam. This is only a few of the so many, maybe 1,000 pictures that kept there in special collections. Next, there's also Yapkun has been traveling from the island of Nias and Aceh in the north until Papua. So they collecting and documenting all the art activities, performance activities, and then now become the very important collection that enrich this project. There's also correspondence that has been made by Yapkuns with so many hundreds colleagues has been contacted and been partner of discussion and writing a book, writing an article, and producing some lecture series in UFA in that times. And I myself has been spend myself a lot to to read this collection, and it is very interesting collection which is have to be connected with the sounds and the sound archive that has been produced by or collected by Yapkuns. Next, this is my activity in a few years ago in a special collection in UFA, trying to identify some important correspondent, especially related to Yogyakarta in that time. Next, and this is Dr. Barbara, who also identifying some other collection with Dr. Mele Yamono in this office. Next, next, this is the special visit made by Dr. Barbara in National Museum Jakarta. You know that Yapkuns not only left some of the wax cylinder or sound archive, but he also collecting some music instrument from around the Nusantara or around the islands. And then some of them has been kept here for years, and as long as I aware, never been really exhibited in the National Museum at Jakarta. Later, maybe I think that's all that I can say. Perhaps if you want to see, I want to see show you kind of glimpses of the archive, audio archive that we have got from the Luft Archive, Loud Archive in Berlin. Maybe you can play the sounds that I have sent to you, and we can listen together just
Ita dai kemben rojo menyang tapih, ita dai tapih rojo menyang jojo, ita dai dodo rojo menyang kalbu. Nima seragil kuning, boyo mira boyo inten sun pujo, dasio siro wong ayu. Sopo duwe bojo jonggrong neng ngembanan kejobo pun kakang dewe.
This one is
sebab sampun sawatawis dinten kula dereng saged melangsong aningali kita menawi kula ingkang mastani kados saged kita Berlin katimbang kaliyan kita Paris ananging ramenipun rame Paris sejatosipun kula kapingin minjing wangsul malih dateng kita Berlin.
Yeah, Morgana, maybe you can say something about the collection, and Barbara, maybe you can add or say something about the Kunst collection, because yesterday we went together to the library of Riva, and we just realized that there are so many gender aspects that have never been discussed, and the archives consisted more than 10,000, right? 10,000 files,
Okay.
and the archives will be digitalized. Okay, will be digitalized maybe next year. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Barbara, you can add something.
A bit about the audio that you just heard together is the voice of Raden Mas Djojana. He's a Japanese artist who lived in Europe, first in the Netherlands and then moved to Paris, French. And the first audio is like a monologue, the telling story about Panji's story, very popular as folk tale in Java from the Majapahit era. And then the second voice was actually a kind of witnessing the city of comparing the city of Berlin and Paris and his opinion about the city, especially when he visited there in 1925. There are other more actually audios from and voice from Raden Mas Djojana. He's a very popular artist, and then he married with European woman and died there. And he has been very popular in and perhaps one of the most active in Japanese artists who has bring Japanese culture in Europe in that time. So I will let Barbara to tell more story a little bit about Yapkun's collections and that especially in the outcome of the sonic entanglement that we have done before.
Yeah. In short, Barbara, we run out of time.
Yes, we run out of time, right? How much time do I have? Do I have time? I think we're already out of time, right?
2 minutes. You can say a bit about the Kunst collection.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity to talk very briefly. I'm Barbara Titus. I'm the curator of the Kunst collection at the University of Amsterdam. And I'm very grateful and happy that I can work together with Bapak Sri Margono and Mbak Widya. And of course, also with my dear colleague Melia Momo, who is also here. Hi, Melle. And also our cooperation partner, Beeld en Geluid, Stevie Knowlton, is also here. Maybe she can say hi very briefly. Then you have seen our entire panel, basically. And what I want to say about the Kunst collection very briefly is that researching the collection and hearing the sounds, Melle and I became more and more convinced that sound recordings should also be used as sources for historical research because lots that has been written. This is one of Melle's ideas that I'm copycatting now. Lots of written sources have been written by people who were able to read and write, and often able to read and write in colonial languages. And what about those people who could not read and write and could not read and write in colonial languages? They vanish from history. So our aim with this focus on sound is to really uncover voices that have not been heard up to now. And therefore we use these two collections, both the Kunst collection, which is music-based, and collections at Beeld en Geluid, which are more speech-based, radio broadcasts from events, experiences of people experiencing those events from their perspective. So maybe that's what I should say about this importance of sound as a basis for historical research, and the importance also of the Kunst collection, that, as we saw, not only consists of sound recordings that you can look up on the internet right now via jaapkunst.org, but also the connection of sound with correspondence, indeed 10,000 letters to and from Jaapkunst, 40,000 pages of correspondence, 6,500 photographs, almost an hour of silent movie, lots of research reports, manuscripts, that are now sort of separate from each other, even though they're all kept at UvA, and that we want to reconnect with each other. So these various media of knowledge, we want to reconnect with each other too.
Thank you so much, Barbara. So I have to give back the floor to Bente. So if you have questions regarding our research project, you can just email us, or email me. And now we are preparing for the call for application for the PhD and also for the fellowship. So if there's any of you who just graduated who have a master's degree, you can just apply. Thank you so much.
Yes, because you will be involved as project coordinator, right, of this project. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, both the speakers, for presenting and helping us with. Then the last 10 minutes.
Yes.
We'll listen to your story.
Okay.
You prepared something for us to tell about your upcoming year as a student of the Maastricht University, also in support of the Nuffic scholarship.
Okay. So perhaps I could borrow the mouse so I can. It's cable. I'm the last one here. Hello everyone from Indonesia and here. I'm Nara. I hope since I'm the last speaker, I'm not really giving any.
Sorry, the camera is still.
Oh yeah, going to be giving any pressure for me. And from the poster also, I've mentioned here, like I'm just recently graduated from Universitas Gadjah Mada, so I'm just like a new baby born here. Okay, I hope I'm not giving any as well. So I'm going to present about the voice from the source, and I'm going to explain about like just graduated from Gadjah Mada and I from public policy and management, and there I also using my bachelor thesis on making a policy paper on the strategies of repatriations from Indonesian collection in the Netherlands. So it's also a long story. Before I went here to Leipzig, to Leiden as an exchange student, and I went to the Volkenkunde, back then the name, to see the Archa and meet a lot of people. And now me realize that I want to pursue a cultural policy, culture in the perspective of public policy. And then and also I finished my policy paper, gave it to Pak Hilman Farid, and met with a lot of stakeholders involving in the repatriation policies, the process between Indonesia and the Netherlands. And next, this is just the figures that Hilman Farid always mentioned, the knowledge production between the institutions of the colonial collections, and also from the perspective of policy, it's repatriation of colonial heritage is very complex with highly modality of legal, political, and administrative aspects. So it's really interesting for me to delve more into there. So I think can for my bachelor I analyzed 3 policy documents from the Netherlands, which is all about the institutions policy, from the Lilian Gonçalves recommendations to the former minister's recommendations, policy vision, and the previous Secretary of Culture on the implementation of the policy visions. And this is basically what are their policy framework based on 3 main concepts of the commitment to cooperate with countries of origin, processing our restitution requests, and support for prevalent research. I'm here basically because of the policy project that made me here right now because of the scholarship. So I'm making this mind map of the procedures, and I can skip this. And also about the repatriation policy implementation, how is that going to flow, like from the institutions in the Netherlands, like coming from the countries of origins, and it is analyzed with the 2 ministries, and then there's a state secretary, and there's also the advisory committee, and then there's also the Dutch Consortium of Museum and institutions, and now it's called the Colonial Consortium that help the information of the provenance research. And but previously, yeah, I think next. But here I also back in the in my bachelor thesis, I criticize about the provenance research and its limitations. That is first, it's kind of in the very Eurocentric dominations of expertise, and it's also cannot reveal the property rights epistemology that we have in the traditional community in pre-Indonesia, and also it's also taking a long years, and also cannot reveal the power relations and cannot reveal the oral history traditions on each objects. Like Pak Margana explained about the sound, and I also really think that it is really important to include sound heritage, the oral history on the process of making knowledge production in the collections. And before the establishment of the Colonial Consortium, they make a plan to make an expertise center of provenance research. But instead, they decided to make, the Dutch government decided to make a Colonial Consortiums. And I think it's also, I quite criticize it because I think making an expertise centers, it could be balancing the Eurocentric expertise with the countries of origin expertise in dealing with the colonial collection. And I met with in the one conference the one of the representative from the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs speak about the restitution is also part the evolution of the norms, the evolving international norms that happen in the global context. So I really looking forward to it. So there's a lot of norms like about protection of the cultural objects, which is mainly Eurocentric view, but there's also another approach of international norms of cultural rights, of indigenous rights, as it from approach that is now evolving until now. It's evolving process. So. And next, then I decided to see repatriations as in the scope of transnational policy. It's not basically bilateral policy or national policy in the scope of state. It's very evolving in the international, transnational paradigm that is giving pressure each other on making in policy context. Also, I always I feel that political context is also giving much impact on the repatriation policy. This is the basically view that what I did in my bachelor using the methodological transnationalism. First is about recognizing the global interconnectivity and networks. So there's a lot of platforms, networks in discussing about repatriations. Like there's Indonesian platforms, there's soft transnational instrument, there's digital network society, and there's also intellectual epistemic communities that building the norms of restitution of the colonial collection of the colonial context. And next, I also another view is to challenge the instrument selections. So instrument selection is not neutral and influenced by power dynamics, and thus the concept of culture heritage is also shaped by power dynamics and impacted by the discourse of the cultural ownership. So before we have the colonialism point of view to see object as a symbol of triumph in the curiosity cabinet, there's also nationalism point of view to reclaim object by the new independent nations, and also now the evolving to more indigenous rights of cultural democracy that each community should at least have the access to their own culture. There's also different views about what we using the terms of repatriations, restitutions, or the more now evolving term of rematriations. And I see the production of knowledge that is really became a buzzword by Hilmar Farid. It also having meaning of discourse as a site of production of knowledge. So it's also compromise through interactions, and rather to find objective meanings, we need to find the actors, how they interpret the policy and the struggle between one another. And yeah, and also I think it's next as well. I think the production of knowledge is a really broad term that also we need to include. It's not only viewer centered on how they view on the object, but it's also a part of co-construction of meaning, of co-creation of meaning, of what that objects really mean, emotionally, spiritually, culturally mean to the people, especially to the communities of origins. So in order to have the production of knowledge, you need to have also the co-creation of meaning of the object. And without that, it could be, and without interaction of community, there is no basically a production of knowledge. And also, and institutions and the authority must ready to facilitate the multifocal narratives that is going to happen, trying to struggling one another to make it. And I think that is part of the role of the cultural institution to facilitate the multifocal narrative. So yeah, this is one example of the new recently restituted Arca Durga from Candi of Singosari. It's also is it museum object, but people may see it as a sacred deity. It's also as a pratima or pralinga or pustaka. A lot of epistemology of people seeing, giving meaning into the object. And also about next, and also like here in Candi, in temple I use the example in Prambanan of that Arca Durga is part of the Candi or temple in Singasari. And in Singasari, there's a lot of community over there that using really giving impactful meaning to the object, to the contextual thing that happened during there. So there's a lot of ceremony, spiritual ceremony. There's like Abhiseka or Tawar Agung that happen every Tahun Saka. Yeah. And next, another example is the keris. One of the recently returned keris is just keris Kukutan Badung. But this is only as a museum object that is included only in the featuring cases. No, it's also part of Pusaka. It's also Pratimo, Pralinga, Sekta Tetamian. How it's people giving meaning to the object. How it's not only knowledge production of the factual informations of how is the provenance of the object, but also about the emotional knowledge, also about the motoric knowledge, how people back then during the day in the past make the keris. That is also part of knowledge. So it's not only part of knowledge production to think about this, where does it come from and everything. Next part. And the people, the communities of origin really put much significance to the object. Not as a part of the museum object, but it's a really crucial object that is intangible to the communities. So every 20th September, the commemoration of Puputan Badung, the city of Denpasar or the previously Badung, like having this ceremony to really spiritualize the keris in Mahabanda ceremony. And it's really it's a community ceremony that is held during the commemoration of Puputan Badung. And next. And also how about the oral history. One of the colonial narratives of one Puputan Badung is the Guguritan Bonam Winasa made by Ida Punanimura. And yeah, it's the Enlightened itself. They have one of the collections about this perspective on what happened during that war. I am so interested in how this narrative could also be included in the production of knowledge in the colonial, the collection from the colonial context. And also in the, this is also a small part, in the provenance research of the keris Puputan Badung, the provenance from the researcher in the Netherlands told that the old king of Bustimura Pemuncutan stabbed himself to death in the Puri. But in another narrative, there's also the priest of Hidup Perdana Mula said that the king not died by killing himself, stabbed himself into place, but is hit by a steel bullet right on his head. So it's again multifocal narratives from many perspectives. So, and also the oral historic traditions, the text that I'm referring to, the Guguritan Buana Winasa, it's not only a poetic text, but it's also a song that is really every year the priests across Bali came together to do nyastra or singing the Guguritan to recalling what actually happened during Puputan Badung. And yeah, so yesterday last Friday, I also went to the World Museum to participate in the restitutions of the Puputan Badung collections, and I also give that this is also a spiritual meaning to the collections. It's not only the museum object, but it's also meaning from source communities. And next, yeah, I think it's a highly debated topic on the Java man. Like many perspectives, many narratives on both perspectives. I think we also need to skip on this because I don't really finish that discussion. And so one of the most important questions is where in the process of this, where is the voice from the impacted local communities? Where is the voice from the source communities that giving the actual meaning and context to that cultural heritage project? So that's a big question which I don't know, I want to answer in my master. Next. So one of the establishment is the Colonial Consortium. There's the data hub, which I really, really like. And there's also the actor narratives to the heritage and object. You can make heritage communities. And yeah, it's really interesting. So how the digital information system are trying to make the inclusivity to the source communities. And yeah, I think yeah, next. Yeah, and then also the artistic approach and next. So I think it's, yeah, this is like several angles of research that I might use to do my research. And then next. Yeah, I think we have to move from Universal Museum and then to Provincial Museum, and this is also about, yeah, I want to recall back to the phrase of the Perdana Mula, then what he say about that they actually really, really happy to die in the war to defend the truth. Yeah, so I hope it could be, yeah, looking forward for my research master. Thank you.
We're a little bit out of time.
Yeah, I know,
I'm
so sorry.
Thank you, and it's really good how passionate you are about the current movement that is going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's also some of the part of the closing words that I wanted to share with you all, that this movement that we're in, it doesn't stop with writing a thesis or graduating your master or having a documentary screening. This movement doesn't stop with only that. It's a bigger mission that we're all working on.
Yeah.
And it's really to redress that injustice and to move forward to a decolonized and honest world and worldviews. We want to thank Nuffic. We want to thank the Dutch Research Council for putting together these speakers today. We want to thank also the Dutch Ministry of Culture and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for their commitment and support regarding the key principle of the Dutch policy on collections from a colonial context, which is the recognition of injustice and the willingness to rectify it as far as possible. Thank you all for joining this session.